Welcome to Krav Life. Today I have a special guest, Mr. Marcus Torgerson. How are you doing today, sir?
Brother, I'm good. Woke up breathing. How can I complain?
That's true. That's true. Not everybody in the industry knows exactly who you are. So I want to start with some background info on you. All right, if that's okay. Can you tell us a little bit about how you got started? Like, did you start in Krav Maga exclusively, or were you a martial artist before, or in the forces? Like how did all this come about?
Well, I started martial arts in 1979. I was 10 years old. Did kung fu, most of artistic Chinese styles at that time. In my 20s, I became interested in a Japanese or Okinawan karate system called Uechi-ryu. Was fortunate enough to get to a second-degree black belt in that. Now, parallel to that, I was a personal trainer. So a lot of my clients would end up doing kickboxing as a result because of, if you remember, Taibo with Billy Blank.
Yes.
Yep. Well, I'm thankful for him because if he hadn't created that, my clients wouldn't have gotten injured as much, and I didn't have I created a whole different industry just because of that. And then I took a bit of I wouldn't say a break. I would just say my focus was on other things. And then in 2005, I decided to get involved with Krav Maga. And since then, 16 years later, boom, here we are.
Oh, nice. And so where was your first introduction to Krav? Like who was it with, and what organization, right. Stuff like that?
Right. So in 2005, they're in Vancouver. I was living in the suburbs of Coquitlam. In Vancouver, there was a Krav Maga school. I think it was worldwide.
Okay.
And I went there for a couple of months. And for whatever reason, I just didn't, something didn't seem right. Something didn't feel right. We were doing 55-minute classes, and we're only doing 10 minutes of whatever this stuff is supposed to be. I was getting in great shape. My fat boy status was going away. But so about probably every night I would be coming home. I went probably 3 times a week. I was dedicated, man. I was all the way in. And then about several months later, or 3 months later, we started looking on the internet, the lady I was dating, and saw that organization didn't really have anything to do with Israel. And I'm a traditionalist, man. That's just who I am. So I started looking for who had to do with Israel, and IKMF popped up, and there's a whole, I'm sure we'll get into it, a whole roller coaster experience to get me to that.
Cool. And all right, so but tell us about that experience. Tell us how it went with the IKMF.
Well, it was you can say God, Allah, Buddha, the universe, you can say whatever, but there's a lot of things that stepped into play here. So at the time, the IKMF didn't have anybody in Canada. So when I did the email talk with who ended up being a guy named Al Yanilov, he was like, well, we don't have anybody in Canada. I was like, well, that sucks, because I just wanted to be a student. I didn't want to be an instructor anymore. I already owned schools. I didn't want none of that responsibility. I just wanted to be a student. And so we're talking about March, April. So I find out through the interwebs that AL is going to be in San Diego in July of that year, 2005. So I'm talking to the woman that I'm with, and she's like, fuck it, just go. So I get on a plane and I go to this seminar. It's like a 3.5 hour seminar, 100 degrees out. I'm wearing all black, like Under Armour kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I was burnt to a crisp, man. But it was like my eyes, like my head exploded. I was like, this is what I'm talking about, man. This is what I want to do. And he said, I'm in. What do I do? He's like, well, you got to become an instructor. I was like, okay, that isn't the answer I want to hear from you. So long story short, he says, the guy responsible for Canada for the IKMF is a guy named Avi Moel, and he'll be in Canada in August. So contact him. So emails and whatever. I'm like, hey, you're going to be in Canada. Talk to me. He goes, yeah, I'll be in Canada. I'll be in Montreal. I'm like,
that's a little
and I'm
bit
in
of
Vancouver.
a,
And he's like, oh, it's small. The country, no problem. We can get it. You know, Israelis, they're, you know,
yeah.
Israel's this big compared to us. So I was like, okay, so spent more money that I didn't have. And I flew to Montreal in the suit, and I was all fucking Gordon Gecko'd out. And I go and I meet him, and it's at his sister's house. So it's this house filled with kids running around, and you know, typical. I would say any house, but in Israel, that's seems to be a little louder. So it's an Israeli house, and I run around, and I sit down, and he talks for a couple of minutes. He puts his hand out. He goes, "You're the new director for the IKMF in Canada." And I was like,
Nice.
"Pardon me?" I said, I came to try to see how I can still be a student. He said, it's not possible. We need a person in Canada. You're it. I was like, fuck. All right. Well, so what's the next step? He said, well, you got to fly to Israel in October and stay with me for the month and do your instructor course. And I was like, okay. Like, walk by faith, not by sight. I was like, all right, cool. Now, you have to keep in mind that, you know, it's 2005. I'd never really traveled. I think Hawaii had been the most I traveled. So I'm now going way out of my comfort zone. And so to make a short story a little bit longer, I flew over in October, landed just before Yom Kippur, which I was lucky. Otherwise, I would have been fucked. He picked me up, and the next day we started the course, and my instructor course was just me and Avi. And like at the time, obviously I couldn't see the significance of it, right? I'm doing my instructor course with just this guy. Now he's done Krav Maga, 40 years. And if you don't know Avi Moyal is, you guys, whoever's listening to this, go search him. Believe me, you'll find out pretty quick who he is. So in his lifetime, before me and after me, I'm the only person who's had a private instructor's course. And I wish back then I would have seen the significance of that, because I probably would have enjoyed it a little bit more, because it was a shit show. I was 10 hours a day getting hammered, like just not beaten to a pulp, but just information overload.
Yeah.
And so 30 days later, I do a test. Ironically, my testing board was Avi and Eyal Yanilov, and did the test, passed it, and then boom, it just kind of skyrocketed from there.
Nice. That's, yeah, it's kind of one of those things you appreciate in hindsight, for sure.
Yeah.
So then I'm assuming you came back to Canada, and then how was being the director in Canada? Like, what sort of things happened with that?
Right. Well, so when I came back, I orchestrated the first instructor course, and it was good. And like, but I'm not a director kind of guy, you know. Like directors, you got to have couth and tact and you know, be a little bit politically correct. And so,
really, you were trained by Israelis, and
yeah. Well, exactly.
they're not exactly known for that.
No, but I mean, but we're in Canada, so I'm supposed
Sure.
to be a little bit nice. So we found a guy that was better for the job, and I handed it off to him, and then I just kind of, you know, every year I would go to some place to do grading or do my testing, you know, like 2006, I was in the Netherlands, right? And then I went to Texas and Montreal, and then Hong Kong, and then Israel. And then I've been to Israel a couple of times in between all of that for specialty courses, law enforcement, and what have you. So, like it's been a magnificent 16 years, man. I cannot complain at all.
And so, are you still instructing, or are you doing?
Right. So my job, I work. I'm part of the global instructor team for the IKMF. So that's a team of, I think we're 9. Team of 9. I'm the only non-Israeli on the team. And our job is to go around the globe and conduct instructor courses, tests, ranking, seminars, workshops, things like that. We have a tier system. So if the global team is the top, underneath that is what we call a continental instructors team.
Okay.
The continental instructors team is one guy's in the UK, one guy's in Australia, and they basically help with the overflow for when we either it's just not cost effective to go to these places or we're just jammed and we can't. Under that, we have a new thing that we've done in the last couple of years called the expert instructor team. And there's about 12 or 13 expert level instructors that have been groomed to be able to go and they're local to their country, so that definitely for spillover or cost or whatever, these guys and ladies will step up and take care of the job of seminars, testing, occasionally instructor courses, stuff like that. So yeah, I'm still instructing. I just teach, I train instructors, not classes.
Okay. And so how is the organization doing? Like, is it continuing to expand? Like, what do you see as the future of it?
Well, I mean, we're like every organization. We just got our asses handed to us over the last couple of years because of COVID. So, you know, a lot of our countries are picking back up and they're moving, going forward. Like every organization, right? Everybody's finally getting the chokehold coming off, and they're now able to get back to business. I foresee, just like everybody else's, that you know, things will, once people are allowed to be themselves again, I feel that growth will be the same as it was projected before we got locked down.
So I got asked actually got an email today. It's a really good question, and I'd like to get your perspective on it. So the person was asking, how do you know a good Krav Maga studio versus one that's not good? What would be your advice to someone that's seeking out Krav Maga? How can they tell the difference?
Well, I'll be honest with you. I think, you know, even if it's a so-called good school, you still have shitty instructors. So I have the same advice for anything, whether it's Krav Maga or any combative system. Go to the school, take a class, take a couple of classes, ask questions, a lot of questions. Because if the instructor is threatened, insecure, or just not a good individual, they're going to have resistance to that behavior. And if they have resistance and your gut says, oh, I don't know, this guy seems like a guy or girl, this person is a bit of a jerk, then don't take your money and go to them. We have, you know, every organization, instructors are human beings, and they're douchebag losers, regardless of what it is. Police officers, law enforcement, lawyers, Krav Maga instructors, there's douchebags everywhere. So before you go and spend any money, go and check out a class, go and take a class. If they're good at their job, they'll be like, okay, come on in. I want you to see what's going on. I have nothing to hide here. And ask specific questions.
Good advice. So you're in the 100 Deadly Skills book.
I sure am. Look at that bad boy right there.
And I've got my copy as well. How did this project happen?
Well, that's a good question. So I was living in Texas at the time, and I was flying to California. I think I was going to San Diego. And Clint Emerson, who also lives in Texas, was at the airport, and he was going to LA, but we were on the same flight for whatever reasons. And I was like, hey, you're Clint Emerson. He's like, yeah. Hey, Marcus. I was like, all right, that stalking is working, man. Social stalking works. And we talked a little bit. We got got the digits, and we started texting back and forth. And then about, let's say, a couple months later, he was like, hey, I got a project that I want you to be a part of. And I just said yes. I didn't ask any questions. I didn't do anything, because when somebody, like, I have all the other books and I hold them in high regard, but I just like the project. When he sits there and says, I want you to be involved, the only answer is yes, you know? And then as it started to come to fruition. Then he started breaking down what the actual project was going to be and how he was going to do it. I mean, the man traveled all across the United States during COVID. You know what I mean? And it's funny, one man's misery is another man's excitement. He has said online, COVID was a blessing for him because there was no way any of us would all been able to, he wouldn't have been able to get to all of us. It would have been impossible. But we're all stuck in our respective areas. So he just drove around and met up with each of us. There's 16 people, I think, in the book. Legends. There's legends in that book, as you know.
Yep.
And then he came. I did my segment, and I can't professionally. I can't think of a higher compliment than being in that book. For those that don't know the book, I get to kick Hitler's ass, and believe me.
Yeah, I was gonna.
As far as a Krav Maga guy and a human being,
yeah.
I'm sure there's a lot of guys that would have beat the shit out of me to be able to get that opportunity.
Yeah, I was gonna ask how was that decided? Like who fights who?
Yeah, that was the artist, Tom Mandrake, who's if you're a comic book geek, he is a stud in DC Comics, actually the comic community. And it just made sense, right? Krav Maga guy kicking Hitler's ass, it makes sense.
Yeah.
So I just was fortunate enough to be able to do Krav Maga, and that's who I got to kick his ass as a result. But and I mean, the book's fucking phenomenal. The whole taking your QR codes and putting your phone over it and getting the videos as a result, like there's over 90 videos in that book, plus the descriptions. Incredible.
Yeah, no, it's definitely an interesting concept in that book. I enjoyed reading it. So what do you have any other projects that you're currently working on or plan on working on?
Well, I mean, I'm not going to say anything about it just because I'm like Murphy's Law, man. If I mention it, it'll just fucking blow up. Yeah. But there is some projects that are ongoing that have been kind of like I've cast the lines, and you know, there's some nibbling on them. But right now, to be honest with you, I'm just enjoying the fact that it's 100 and some degrees, sunny all the time. I live in Arizona. I'm in one of the best countries in the world. And I get to have opportunities like this, you know, be able to sit there and bullshit with people online is a blessing. Yeah,
definitely is. I don't know how, because everybody's now online and communicating with each other. The one thing that we've noticed is that there seems to be a kind of like an uptick in interest in Krav Maga, I guess you could say. And they're like, what is your kind of like feeling on as to why that is happening?
Well, I mean, so I don't have the stats. So when I say these numbers, I'm pulling numbers out of my ass. So before anybody jumps on, like, that's not right, I qualify my statements. I'm incorrect on these numbers. Domestic violence has got to be up 300%, right? I mean, and I'm being generous with 300%. Crimes in the street are up massively because everybody's got to wear a mask. I can walk right up, and I've seen people walk up, punch people, grab their shit, and run away. What are you supposed to say? Oh, it's the guy in the black shirt and the Guns N' Roses mask. You know, like it's and you've got elderly that are stuck at home because of the fact that they can't go out. So it's from a criminal's perspective, COVID is the best thing that ever happened because they're like, we got targets, we got the ability to sit there and do things, and I get to wear a mask with nobody busting my balls about it. So it's not surprising that people are looking more to it. Plus, I mean, just violence in general. Our world is unstable right now, man. People are hating each other. There's violence everywhere. Our entire world has been flipped upside down. Or, well, I guess if the scales of balance were like this, I mean, they're completely 90 degrees or 1,000 degrees upside down.
Yeah. And is there an increase in violence in your area? Like, how is it in Arizona?
Well, I mean, Arizona is I can't say that there's one part of this planet that has not seen an uptake in violence. I can't say that there's anywhere. With the fact that the police have got their hands tied and they're not able to engage with most of it, so they're pushing back. Basically, the one deterrent we had for criminals, they're not stupid. They're looking online as well. Oh, so you're telling me that a third or a quarter or whatever number of the police are not going to work, or they're not answering these calls?
Yeah.
Well, fuck. Why wouldn't I go and create anarchy and headaches and go and rob somebody? I mean, I'm not going to get caught. My chances of getting caught are this big. So of course there's going to be an uptake in protective measures. Gun sales have gone through the roof. Everybody and their mother's doing jiu-jitsu or Krav Maga or something. And you know, criminals are like, whatever. You know, I don't give a shit.
Yeah. Well, hopefully, well, yeah, but that's the whole thing, right? We got to take our own defense into our own hands, right? Because even before COVID and before the defund the police and before all that, the police weren't going to be there when you were getting robbed anyway, right? Now it's even worse. So we have to take responsibility for ourselves and our loved ones more so. Yeah, no, that's good. So I've heard you on because you're like I've heard you on several different podcasts and shows and stuff like that. So people definitely seek you out as for information, right? On Krav Maga, self-defense, self-protection type stuff. Do you have like a blog or any sort of I don't even know what I'm trying to say. Any sort of way that you disseminate your information, or is it just through your instructors?
You know, I'm a social media whore, man. I'm on all the time. No, I mean, let's be real. I am. I'm very active on social media. So when it comes to giving out information, like my Instagram is constantly there's little tips and stuff that are thrown out every single day, because at the end of the day, no information should be hidden from anybody. So if somebody might message me like you get messages all the time, and they're like, well, I'm very afraid of blank, whatever that threat is. Now I can give them the answer, which I do, or I can sit there and see that it's the 5th time somebody's brought this up. So I'm just like, look, and then just spend a few minutes online, because the answers are easy to solve. The hard part is getting up off your lazy ass and taking action and doing what's necessary to be proficient in whatever that solution is for that problem.
That's a good point. So, like, obviously, you know, getting off your ass, as you say, and going to train at a reputable studio is the best answer. But if someone's just looking for answers online to certain questions, who are some people that you respect and you'd say, well, definitely look up this guy's material or this guy's material?
I'd say hands down right away, one of the highlights in the last few years has been getting to know Tony Blair. Tony's, you know, he's got his spear system, but more importantly, to me, his something that I'm getting involved in as much as possible is fear management and dealing with the mental and emotional sides to when violence comes by you. Tony's a fantastic guy. The guy's phenomenal. God,
all Canadians are, right?
Right. Yeah, that's true. It's funny, you know, he and I went on his podcast, and it was like the two guys in the, you remember the Muppets, the two guys in the,
I actually listened to that podcast. Yeah.
Oh my God, two grumpy old fucks, man. Oh my God. That was one of the best, that was one of the best podcasts I've ever been on.
That was a long one though. I had to listen to it over a few days.
It went, we don't shut up, that's for sure. I'm a big fan of, again, when we talk about going online to get information, I think the more specific you are about the type of information you need, do you require hands-on stuff? Are you looking more towards some type of weaponry, or you have an affliction for firearms, or wherever that is? You know, there's the internet, man. There's like 9 gazillion people online. So I don't think necessarily I have anybody specific that I go to. And I bring up Tony only because of the fact that his fear management thing is something that has nothing to do with style, technique, nothing. It just has to do with, here's the realities of what's going to happen chemically and emotionally. Here's what you can look forward to, and then take whatever your tactics are, whatever you come from, whatever your background is, and use that tactic once you understand the fear mechanism.
Yeah. I agree. I like Tony's stuff. And this is the whole thing that I think that got me into Krav Maga was that not just the simplicity of movements and all that technical stuff, but it's how Krav Maga is willing to adapt and change, right?
Yep.
Like real Krav Maga. Like if you're in a system that's like, no, this is the way we do it and the way we've always done it, I don't think that's a good system to be in. But Kravists are generally not afraid to take from anyone in the self-protection industry.
Right. Well, it was created by stealing from a whole bunch of different things. So to sit there and say that you're not going to do it now is a little hypocritical.
Exactly, right? Yeah. And guys, you know, like Tony Blauer and others in the industry, I think can add real value to I don't even know what to call our art, right? I guess for lack of a better term.
Yeah.
To our Krav Maga system. So are there any sort of developments in different Krav Maga techniques that you've seen in recent years that you're kind of like, oh, that's definitely better than the way it was before?
Well, I mean, I'm not it's not that I don't keep eyes on other people's Krav Maga, but you know, I've got a limited amount of time in my brain. So, you know, I get pretty focused on what we're doing. And unless I see something that's absolutely asinine, right? Like, I mean, dealing with a front choke and you kiss them, you know what I mean? Like, which actually probably might actually work, but something that'll get somebody killed, right? Like those are the things that I when I see it, I'm like, you're an idiot, and I just kind of have to push it away. What I see in Krav Maga is thankfully less worried about technique and more about principles. Nice. Because at the end of the day, Krav Maga is so simple. 4 rules, 2 principles, man. That's it. You can fucking have 792 million techniques. But at the end of the day, if you live your life, Krav Maga life, via principles and 4 simple rules, fuck, man, you can get out of almost any scenario.
And for the people that are listening, because we've got listeners that are just right beginners to expert levels, can you run down those rules and principles for them?
So the 4 rules are very simple. Deal with the threat, right? You deal with the issue. Whatever the issue is, you deal with it. You counterattack as fast as possible. Counterattack doesn't necessarily always have to be violent. It doesn't always have to be combative. It can be verbal. It can be de-escalation. Disengage or disarm, depending on whether there's a weapon or not. I'm a big believer in disengaging. And then scan and run away. Simple. And it applies to every technique we have in the Krav Maga system. There's not one technique that doesn't have one of those 4 or all of those 4 rules. And the principles are simple. You have a principle of attack and you have a principle of defense. There's only 2 ways to attack. That's it. Until there's 3 heads and 4 arms and we're all fucking aliens, there's 2 ways to attack. I can attack directly and I can attack indirectly. That's it. Which means I either deflect an attack or I block, stop an attack. That's it. Done. What about, never mind, which one does it apply to? Which attack is it? And then I'm going to do the appropriate defense depending on the timeline of which I saw said attack. Done. Yeah. Move on. Right? I mean, it's so simple. But now, that being said, it's so simple that if we actually, I'm a big believer in just being transparent. If you're making money and you have to expand on things, like really, this is how you throw a punch, and you spend 3 months on a punch because you want to get that dollar, you're a piece of shit. Yeah. Krav Maga should be lent like this. They should be able to sit there and know a technique that night. Now, are they going to be good at it? No. That's where you make your money, by them being good at the technique, by you being diligent in your professionalism and making sure that they're good to go. But technique-wise, they should be able to deploy those techniques like that.
Yeah.
And that part I'll fight anybody on. There, you can argue, you can have anybody. I'll argue with anybody about that, because if you're making it complicated, it's not Krav Maga.
No, and I agree. It's Krav Maga has to be simple, and it's our job as instructors to make sure that people acquire these skills as quickly as possible. They don't come to you to learn self-defense and be good at it in 5 years. Yeah. We need to make them good enough so that they're attacked when they leave your studio, that they have a chance. Yep. Otherwise we're doing a disservice, right? That would be like, I don't know, like a doctor dispensing medicine without checking you out first. So like, here, you just need this.
That doesn't happen.
No.
Not at all. No, not at all.
I imagine it happens more in the US than in Canada, but yeah, it still happens. Yeah. But I mean, the principle of it, right? And if a doctor is doing that, same thing. The doctor's piece of crap, right? And shouldn't be a doctor, because some people get into medicine to save lives, and other people get into it for the money. Yep. And it would be the same thing in our industry, right? And I think that's important for our viewers to understand, that if your instructor is one of those ones that's just about the money, that so principle-based teaching and making sure that to keep things simple and keep people safe.
Yep.
Definitely agree.
Yep.
All right. So if where would people go if they wanted to learn more about the IKMF? Like, what's the website to find like a local studio and stuff like that?
Just Google it. Just Google IKMF Krav Maga, and their website will pop right up, right? And then from going to the website, then you can see different branches, and if there's a branch in your area, and you get contact. Yeah, it's the internet, man. Everything's just a Google step away. You know what I mean? It's a great time to be alive on that one.
Definitely. All right, sir. So, and you yourself, you're available for like seminars and stuff like that?
Yeah, I travel. I'm not traveling internationally currently, and I probably won't for the rest of the year. But I'm still doing stuff within the United States, and seminars and all that kind of good stuff. Yeah.
Perfect. All right. Well, I want to thank you for coming on the show, right? And it's been great talking to you and finding out your perspective on different things. So hopefully I get to talk.
For the opportunity.
Hopefully I get the opportunity to talk to you at another point in the future.
I'm not going anywhere. You say so, and I'll be here.
Perfect.